Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be diving into a Node.js/Express tutorial where we set up a simple web server and serve a bare bones HTML page where we have a button that can make a request to our web server and grab back some data and reflect it on the page. This video will also cover the basics of routing with Express, and just to note that we won't be connecting to an actual database yet in this video. We're just going to be sending data straight in the responses. My following video will build on from this, but I wanted to keep them kind of separate because they kind of are two separate topics, and I want to be able to provide you guys with a high level sort of template for your future dev projects by the completion of this video. Now, this tutorial is meant for beginners, so if you're already familiar with the framework, some of the topics in this video you might already know. Otherwise, if not, I'm hoping that through this video you're going to get a better understanding of how web servers and front-end clients communicate with each other, and to demonstrate that it's not overly difficult to fire up a web server for your development needs. Now, as I said, this video is aimed at beginners, and with that, in this video there actually isn't going to be a great deal of code actually written. However, being at least familiar with JavaScript and HTML is definitely going to help you learn the concepts. And just to note that all the code written in today's video will be on my GitHub, so if you want to skip the video and just go straight to the source code, I'll leave a link in the description below. Alright, so what is Node.js and Express? So Node.js is an open source and cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. So Node.js actually runs the V8 JavaScript engine that is commonly found in modern web browsers today like Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, which allows JavaScript to actually be run. And Node.js also has a pretty unique advantage compared to other languages because client-side code is mostly written in JavaScript, and that is what Node.js is actually built on. So it's great for developers who might already be familiar with, developing on the front end, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So if you want to learn how to do backend development, you don't have to learn two completely different languages. You can use JavaScript for the front end, and you can use JavaScript from the back end. It's just the same languages, but just kind of different concepts and I guess ways of thinking, I suppose. Node.js also comes with its inbuilt package manager, which is called Npm, or Node Package Manager, which is a sort of open source ecosystem of JavaScript and Node.js packages, which we'll also actually be using today as well. And Express is a web application framework built on top of Node.js. So Express just allows us to pretty much scaffold and set up web servers really quickly compared to just bare bones JavaScript and Node.js. But of course, if you wanted to do that without Express, you could definitely do it, just that Express makes it a lot easier for us, and it really seems to be the de facto framework for building web servers on top of Node.js. Alright guys, so a quick peek into what we're going to be building today. So literally, as I said, it's just a bare bones HTML page that's being served by our Express server, and all it has is a H1 that says welcome to Express, a button, and when I click on this button, it's going to make a fetch GET request to the web server and just return back a response of data retrieved. Alright, so before we get started, just make sure you have Node.js installed. You just go to Google and type in Node.js. You'll be able to find it here. You just go to download. Depending on your operating system, if you're Mac or Linux or Windows, just download the latest one for you. And then once you've downloaded it, just make sure you open up a terminal and just verify that it's all good by typing in node -- version and making sure something comes back up. So here I'm working with Node version 14.16.1. And once you've checked that, obviously get Visual Studio Code open, and we'll just jump into a new folder. Alright, so I'm just going to open up a folder here, and I'll say new folder here. I'm just going to say Express tutorial. Yep, that's right. Cool. Say yes to that. And I'm going to jump into this folder and open up a terminal session. And from here, I'm just going to initialize npm. So I'll type in npm-init, or just npm init, sorry. Now, npm actually comes by default with npm, so if you've downloaded Node, you should be able to run this command just as is. And you can also just check as well by going npm -- version and seeing what that comes back with. So for me, that's 6.14.12. Alright, so let's go npm init, and the package name is going to leave the same. I'm just going to click through all this. I'll just say Express tutorial here. The entry point will be the index.js file, and Daniel Otto. Oh, whoops, that should have been the author up there. That's alright. Yep. Okay, I'll just get rid of these keywords. Alright, cool. So once you initialize Npm and your package looks fairly similar to mine or whatever, we're going to actually go ahead and download some Npm packages, and one of those is Express, and another one is called Path. So to do that, what we have to do is just type in here npm install Express and Path. That shouldn't take very long. Express is a fairly lightweight framework, which is good. So from here, we basically need to now build out our index.js file from which our Express web server is going to run from. So we just go into our root directory and make a new file called index.js. Great. Alright, so now from here, we're going to be bringing in the Express package and then basically starting up the most sort of basic web server with Express that we can do. So I'm just going to say const express equals require express. And we also want path. We're not going to need it just now, but I'm just going to bring it in now anyway. So const path equals require path. And now we can actually instantiate the Express app. So I'll just say const app equals express. And now we need to define a port number for our Express application to run on. The default one generally seems to be 3000, so oops, that's what I'm going to write. So const port equals 3000. And now we've got our port number defined. We just need to tell our Express application to listen to anything on that port number. And to do that, all we have to do is just say app.listen. And this method takes in two parameters. This can take in the port and also a callback function, which in that callback function, I'm just going to log a message to the terminal to say that the Express application is listening on this port number. So I'll say log. I'm just going to go down here in tab just to auto-complete that. Or not. Why didn't that work? Ah, there we go. I don't know why this came in at the top. Now I can just go backtick, listening at port 3000. So that would be, sorry, listening at port, because we've got the port variable there, which is 3000. That should work, so I'll just save that off, and I can do node index. And this should now fire up our server, and there we go. It's listening at port 3000. So that is literally all it takes to build a web server. Well, kind of. I mean, we've started the server, we've started the Express application, but even though it's listening right now, it's obviously not going to be doing very much, right? Nothing's gonna happen when we go to port 3000 on localhost. So if I go to port 3000 localhost, you can see here it says cannot get /, which is the root of our application. That's simply because we haven't defined anything there yet. So that is going to be the next step. One way we can do this is say app.get. So any HTTP request with the get method that tries to come to the root of our application, the /, we basically want to do something with that. So this is going to take in another function here as well, and we can say rec-res, so request response. And there I just want to say res.send, and I can say welcome to Express. So now with our server, if anybody comes to the root of our application, they should see this res.send message, which is welcome to Express. Now I do need to restart the server for this to take effect. So I'm just going to go Control-C down here and then just start it up again. And now I'll just come back to the browser and refresh this. And there we go. We get welcome to Express. Just move that out of the way. So that's how we can sort of return a response back. But now let's make it a little bit more interesting and actually, serve a actual HTML document. So I'm going to again show you a couple of ways we could do this. But first up, what we're going to do is just create a index.html file in the root of our application. So I'll just say index.html, exclamation mark here, which should, I don't know why my Emmet's not working. This is Django HTML, here we go. So I think I just want this one. There we go. The Emmet abbreviations work there. So now I'm just going to change the title to be Express Tutorial. Oopsie. And in the body here, I'm going to put a H1. and just say welcome to Express, just like that. And I'll put a paragraph here just so it looks a little bit different to what we saw before. This is a tutorial. Okay, so now I've got a pretty basic, HTML file right here. And to serve this, I can just say instead of saying res.send, we can say res.send file. And all we need to do now is provide the path name of the index.html file. Now you would think probably that I could just go like index.html maybe, because we're at the root of our application. But this isn't going to work because it needs the full path. And you see here, if I actually Control C again, just with what I have now, and node index, and I go to refresh this again, this should break. There we go. So you can see there what it's trying to do, right? It's starting off from the C drive here for me. So we need to provide the full path from the C drive. And the easiest way to actually go about this is to use the module that we already installed here called path. So what we can do here is just say, instead of sending this index.html like that, we want to do, just get rid of this. So we can say path.join. Now this method takes in two parameters, basically what two strings we want to join together to form the path. So I can just say underscore dir name, comma, and now I can say, oops, slash index.html. I'll save that away and I'll just restart the server. Now if I refresh this, there we go. We're getting the full index.html document. Alright, cool. So we've now seen how to sort of set up a very basic route to the root of our application using this app.get, how to send a response with just res.send, or how to send a actual file itself. Alright, so now what we're going to do is actually just sort of put our index.html into its own client folder, and then we're actually going to be able to serve the whole folder that it's in and all the folder contents as well. Alright, so back to our terminal session here. I'll just cancel this off again, and I'm just going to move our index.html into its own folder. So I'm just going to say here, make a new folder, and we'll call it like public or something. Alright, and now I'm just going to move that into the public folder, just like that. Cool. Alright, so now that we've got this sort of public folder here, which is going to host all of our sort of static content, so all the content to do with the client side, so the index.html, any CSS files we might have, and JavaScript files that we might have, we could put it all here into the public folder, and we can tell Express about this public folder, and then any routes that would need the public folder, we can sort of handle it a little bit easier. So I'll just sort of show you what I mean by this. So we can say up here, I'm just going to comment all this out down here. And if we go app.use, and now this is another sort of method with Express. So say express.static, and now this is going to take in a path basically as well. So again, I'm going to go path.join, and then pass in the dir name and the folder that we want to join it on with. So this is going to be the public folder. So the root of our, the full path to our application plus public. Now basically anything that's in the public folder is going to be served by Express. So you see here, I've commented this out here. So this is not in use anymore, but the index.html file will still get served because of this express.static method. So I'll just type in node index again and go back to our application. If I refresh this, it should stay. And there we go, it does stay. Okay, so just to show you again as well, I'll just comment this out, or just use these ones. Save it, cancel that, start it up again. And it doesn't work because we haven't served it to Express. So I'm going to put that back in and save that away. I also do now want to install another package into our project so that we don't have to keep refreshing the server every time. And that package is called Nodemon, and that's going to watch our files for any changes and just restart the server for us, so we don't have to keep doing Control C, node index and stuff like that. So I am going to install Nodemon via npm. So we'll say npm install Nodemon. Great. Alright, so once that's installed, we're going to go to our package.json file as well, and we're also going to create a new script to basically use Nodemon with. So basically from here, this script section here, we can define what scripts we want to use with npm within our project here. So if I say start, and then I go node index, now I can say npm run start, and this is going to basically just check our package.json file for any script called start, and it's going to do it. And the script called start is basically just going to run node index, which is what we were running before to start our server. So I'll just say npm run start, and there we go. Our server is back up again. I'll just make sure that we can reach it. Yep, cool. So I'm going to close this off now, and now we're going to use Nodemon. Alright, so now I'm just going to go here, instead of node index, we'll just say Nodemon index. And there we go, npm run start. And now you can see here, it looks a little bit different, right? Nodemon is now watching the index file. So any changes I make here, so if I go comment this out, I'll just make sure I've got this open here, so it's still working. If I comment this out now, save, you can see there Nodemon said it's restarting due to changes. Now it's going to break because I've commented that out. Alright, cool. So I'm just going to put this back in. And from here now as well, I also just want to get some just some styling into our application now. I'm not actually going to write any CSS here, but I do want to get some styling. So we can use a CDN to bring in some styles just to make it look a little bit better. So if you type in Google Materialize Css, you should find this. And we're just going to go get started. And I'm just going to copy this CDN here. And we can put this into our index.html file at the top for our CSS. And then the JavaScript we'll put at the bottom. Not that we're, actually I'm not even going to, I'll put the JavaScript in there, sure. Not that I think we really need it though. So I'll put that there. I'll leave a link for these two CDNs, or for the Materialize CSS actually, within the description below, so you won't have to go chasing for it. But that's all we need there. So now if we check back on our server, we should see some changes if I refresh this, sorry. So there we go, that's all it's done. Just put some styling to the H1s and the end to also the paragraph there as well. And I'm just going to wrap this in a div of class container. Now I don't know why my Emmet thing keeps turning off. That's a bit annoying. Just go HTML again, container, there we go. And I'll just Control X to copy and cut, and I'll paste it in there. If I save that up now, refresh this, I should get like a little bit of padding around the edges there and stuff. So that's nice. All right. Okay, so while we're here still in our index.html, I'm just going to finish it off because there's not much to do really at all. All I want to do here is just basically put a button and then just give our paragraph also an ID so that we can change it later, reference it and change it later. So I'm just going to say here, button of class button or btn. I'm just going to say fetch here. And oops, I'm just going to change this paragraph into a h3 instead, and we're going to give it an ID of our fetched. Alright, just going to save that off, and I'm going to go back to our server, our page. I think this came up because I clicked on the div. Just refresh this, and that's what it's looking like so far. Cool, alright, so now I'm just going to create a very quick index.js file just so that we've got something happening with this fetch button. And then we're going to go ahead and build the routes on our Express server. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and... Alright, so back to Visual Studio Code, just go into your public folder, create an index.js file. And I'm going to say here, just like function you clicked, and we're just gonna alert clicked it. Okay, I think that should be good. And in here we want to reference our index.js file. So just above this one, I'm just going to type in script, tab down to source, and we'll say index.js there. Alright, so one way we could just reference this this uClick function. Alright, so one way we could reference our uClick function is just to say an onClick here, but that's kind of not recommended. I think, you know, most days these days to use inline JavaScript like this with basic HTML. So we'll add a on event listener to our button. So but actually before that, just noticing this here, this ID should be on the button, not the H3. Sorry. So I'll just put that there, and now we'll go back to our index.js, and in here we can add a like event listener basically. So I'll just say const our button equals document dot get element by ID, and this is our fetched because that's what the button ID is called, right? Button ID is our fetched, and down here we can say our button dot add event listener, and we'll listen for any clicks on this button. And when people do click it, we want to run the uClick function, so we'll pass that in as well. Alright, so I'll save this, and I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go back to our web page here, and I'll just refresh this. And now if I click this, we get clicked it alert, because that's what our function's doing. Alright, cool. So I will just now also make this a bit bigger actually. I'm just going to say button large, and I think there's some other classes, but I'll just leave this for now. So we'll say button large, and I'm going to go back here, refresh it, and just a little bit bigger. Alright, cool. Okay, so now let's actually get stuck into the routes and stuff for our Express server. We'll come back to our button later and our client side later when we want to actually retrieve data from the Express server, but we have to actually set up the Express server to send back information or define some routes and stuff. So that is what we're going to do. So we'll go back to our index.js file here. And I think actually I might just leave this here for now, and then we'll start up with defining the services, and the services are going to be the sort of functions that we use with the routes that we define. I think doing it this way, going sort of in reverse, might make a little bit more sense than sort of stacking things on top of each other for now. So if we go to the root of our application, let's create a new folder called services, and within services we'll create a new file called api.js. And in this file here, all we want to do is just export a function to use. So I'm just going to say exports our function equals rec res, and res.send. This is the response, just like that. Okay, so I'll just save that off. And this is currently not doing anything because we haven't brought it into our application yet, but we will in a moment. So we're going to go out of this back to the root of our application, and now we can define a route which is going to use this function. So create a new folder called routes, and within routes we're going to create a route for our API. So I'm just going to say api.js. It doesn't have to be this, but I'm just keeping it in line with the services file. So within the api.js of our routes folder, we want to bring in express. And now we can instantiate the router on the express object. So if I say router equals express.router, just like that, and now I can say API equals require services / API, like that. And now, so what's happening here is that we've instantiated the router on our Express application, and we brought in our API file from our services folder, and now we can actually use those functions within the API file of the services folder. So if I say now here router.get at slash, and I can say API.our function, just like that. And now we just have to export the router. I'll save that off. Alright, so pretty much now anything that comes to this route and does a GET request on the root of this route is going to get the our function from our API.js file in the services folder. But just lastly, now we have to make sure that our Express application at the root level in the index.js knows about this route. So all we have to say here is to go app.use, and I'll say this can be whatever, but I'll just say API just to keep it in line with everything we're doing. I'll say require routes/API, just like that. Okay, cool. So I'll save that off, make sure everything's saved. Our server's still up, so I'm going to go back to our application now, refresh this. Now if I go to /API, I get this is the response. Sweet, okay, that is really good. So, alright, so that's all looking really good, it's working at the moment, but I just want to take a minute just to sort of explain as to what's sort of going on here. Okay, so basically what's happening is that we've got our client here, this web browser open, and if we go to /API, Express is saying anything that comes to the /API routes, pretty much just handle it with this /route/API folder, right? So it comes to the /API.js in our routes folder, and this is saying anything that comes to this route or the root of that route, which is actually /API, use this function right here because we've done a GET request on it as well. So I just want to show you though as well that if we change this so that you actually understand it, that if I say, this could be, I don't know, anything, so I'll say anything, right? Save this off. Now this needs to go to anything, and I still get the same response, right? So if I go back to API, now it breaks because it doesn't know about the route/API. It only knows about the route/anything. And you can also see though as well that when we go to the routes folder, this is a bit confusing. I found when I was first learning it that you think it's sort of the root of the application here, but really it is the root of the route that's been defined here. So this is, if this says / here, then that is really what's being used here, because that's the route that's been defined there. So if I said here instead, like /API here, I save this, go back to our server, and if I try to go to anything again, it's going to fail because it's going to anything, which is going into this route here, and there isn't anything here for the root level of that route. It only knows /anything/API now. So if I go API, then we get the response. So hopefully that is sort of making sense to you. I recommend that you try to do what I've just done there. Try to take apart things, try to change things, see where they break, see how you can fix it, kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's sort of important to know how the router is handling these endpoints, because it's a key part of Express. Alright, so now I'm just going to take it back and I'm going to put this back to just being the root of this route, this API route. I'll save this off and I'm going to change this back to being API as well. And now the last thing that we really need to do is basically get this data on our front end. So we want to get this response from this function, from this route, and reflect it in our index.html when we click a button. So if we go back to our index.html here, I can see we've got our button there, that's right. So now we'll go back to our index.js of our public folder where our client lives. And in our uClick function, I might just say here, instead of having it alerting us uClicked, we're going to do a GET request, a HTTP GET request via fetch on the endpoint that we just defined, or on the route that we just defined. So to do that, all we have to say is in here, fetch, and this is going to be localhost, and what's the one we want? API, right? Yep, so just copy this. Just like that. So this is going to return a promise, and and we can say then, which turns back a response. And it's not JSON, so we don't need to do response.json, but we just want the body of the response, so we'll say response.text. And then with the response.text, we're going to want to change the paragraph that we defined there before. So I'm just going to say info log. We'll just log it out for now. Log info, like that. Alright, I'll save this off. We'll go to our root of our application where the index.html is. And if I click this now, I should hopefully get a response. There we go. This is the response. So we're able to hit our endpoint and then log the response that we get from our Express server to the console here on the client. So now what we need to do is just define an ID for this H3 here so that we can reference it, and then change the text content. In fact, actually I might just put a new element in here instead. So we'll say H2 with an ID of fetched response, just like that, and with nothing in it. So now if I refresh this here, we shouldn't really see anything because it shouldn't be there, right? Cool. And now what we want to do is go back to our index.js of our public folder, and we'll just have a reference for this. So I'll say const our fetch, or I'll just say fetch response equals document.get element by ID fetched response. I think that's what we called it, right? Fetch response, yep. Just make sure that's right. Cool. Alright, so now in here, instead of console logging it, all we want to do is just change the text content to be info instead, right? So we'll say fetch response dot text content equals info. Alright, save that off. Get back to our server here or our web page, refresh this, fetch it, and there we go. This is the response. We've got it now. Okay guys, so I think it's going to cover most of what I want to show you today, but I think just lastly I will just demonstrate that, you know, the routes that we set up in the route folder, we don't have to limit it to just one function or just one route within the API route or the API file that we have here. So we could say router.get slash and let this be something, and then we can say API.out function 2, okay, and I'm just going to go here and make an out function 2, just like that, out function 2, and we'll say this is another response. I'll save that, and I'll save this here, and I'll just save our index.js as well. And then coming to our index.js of our client side, I'm just going to say here instead, I think it was something, wasn't it? Yep. So it's going to go API slash something. It's going to use out function 2 now. If we go to this endpoint, so save this off. Go back to our server here. Oh, sorry, well, our front end here. Refresh this, and we should get this is another response, and we do. So yeah, we can, you know, you can keep adding to this. You can create multiple services files. So, you know, a common thing would be like a user's services with a user route. So all your authentication and stuff could go there. But for the scope of this video, I want to leave it here. In a future video, if you guys are interested, leave a comment below, and I'm going to continue on from this video and basically connect it to a database. And there we'll define even more routes, so you know where we'll be posting and deleting and putting, because at the moment all we're using is http.gets, because we don't really have a database to work with, you know, posting and deleting stuff at the moment. But I really feel like that deserves its own video, how to connect your Express application to a database like MongoDB or a MySQL server, and then make updates to that database as well, and then reflecting the changes back on the front end, you know, really covering, I guess, full stack development in a sense. So if that's something you guys are interested in, make sure you drop a comment below. And as usual, if you found this video useful or you got some value out of it, I highly encourage you to subscribe and like the video. It does support the channel a long way. Other than that, guys, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in a future video. Thanks, guys.